All right, everybody. How are you? I am back. Let's see. Let's make sure that we're up on all the. Are we up on YouTube? Let's see. Let's find out. I'm not sure if we're still up or if we were down or. Yep, we're up on YouTube. And what about. No. Am I up on? Not sure if I'm still up on Rumble. Oh, Rumble never stopped. Okay, Rumble never stopped. All right. So, slight error when I was gone. It seems that my mic was live for part of the time that I was taking my dog out. I thought I had my mic muted, and I was wrong. Life happens. It just, living in the Bronx. What can I say? So, embarrassment aside, I'm glad to see Graham's back with us. Dow's back with us. We are back on. So, tried to be about an hour. The puppy took his time. And it's cold out there. It is cold in New York. Where's all the global warming? Well, it was like 60 yesterday, which wasn't breaking a record, but still, it was cold. And and it's kind of funny because we're hearing about the icy weather that's going across the United States. They're talking about the nor'easter that's about to hit us. And they're freaking out because in Iowa, and we promised that we would be talking about domestic issues and talking about the election and talking about the primaries. And so people are afraid about Iowa and that they're just, they may not have their primary, which I think is absolutely ridiculous. I think it's insane. Hello, Grace. Good to see that you're here with us, too. And I think it's absolutely insane. And in the first part, you may have heard everyone talking about, well, Mike, they want to shut it down. It's not like we've never had winter before. They act like it's such a new thing. And this is always with the news media. They always have to make you think that something that happened in the past didn't happen. They want you to forget and only think about what's happening this time. And it's such a shock. It's incredible. Oh my God, it's going to be snow in a primary in the middle of America, in the northern hemisphere. What's the surprise here? We have cold weather. We have snow. We have nor'easters. It's not new. We've had blizzards during primaries before. That never stopped anyone. And I don't see any reason why this one's going to stop anyone either. Again, I think, and I said this in the last part, I'll say it again, I think this is meant to cover up the fact that Democrats aren't interested, that they don't want to be involved. They don't think that Joe Biden is a good candidate. He's not polling well. And the biggest thing that's helping Joe Biden is that he has no one to run against. Gavin Newsom would love to step up and to take over for Joe Biden. There's the rumor that Michelle Obama will step up and take over for Joe Biden. There's the RFK wants desperately to be running, but since the Democrats kicked him out, he's running independent. So he definitely doesn't want to see a Joe Biden. Actually, no, let me correct that. I think RFK Jr. wants Joe Biden in so that he can do better than if a Gavin Newsom or a Michelle Obama were there. He would suddenly lose all of his momentum. So he wants Joe Biden to stay in. He's like the only one who's been a Democrat that actually wants Joe Biden to stay involved in the election besides, well, that's it. Maybe Jill Biden wants Joe Biden to win again as well. Hey, Cool Roy. Good to see you. Good to see you. It's been a while since I've seen you on here. Cool Roy says, I remember in the late 70s, the entire Chesapeake Bay froze over solid. Yeah, I remember that. There was a couple of blizzards in the 70s and 80s that were immense. I mean, I remember how even in the 90s, I remember there was a blizzard that shut down New York City. It was up to my thigh. I remember because I was a stockbroker at the time, and there was no train. The 5 train did not run because it was like 2-3 feet of snow, and obviously the train couldn't plow through that, so there was no way to get downtown. I remember that very well. That was in the 90s. Had to be like 97, 98. Graham says, yeah, if I'm not mistaken, most people in Iowa can walk to their caucus location. Snow won't stop hardcore Trump supporters. I'd say it's even more than just Trump supporters. The people of Iowa have great pride in being the first primary for the nation when it comes to a presidential election, that they take great pride in having their voices heard amongst the entire nation. And unlike a New York, a Chicago, Illinois, they're not a big state. So this is really important for them to let the rest of the nation know what the middle, literally the middle of America, thinks about any presidential election. So they're not going to let something minor like snow stop them. Not when this is something that they deal with every year, whether it's a presidential election or not. This is not new to them. So they're not going to let this stop them. They are going to come out, and the only reason why political pundits are saying Iowa is going to somehow be affected is because Democrats aren't going to show up. Democrats, and again, it's not because Democrats in Iowa used to live in, I don't know, Florida. No, and they're used to it too. They just don't care. Joe Biden's the only guy on the ticket, the only name to talk about. They don't have another choice. Even though they may want another choice, they're not getting a choice. The Democrats locked them out of that. They were nullified. Yes, the Democrats were nullified by the Democratic Party and said, no, this is your only choice. You don't get another choice. You don't get another voice. This is it. You're going to accept it, and you're going to vote for him, and that's it. You're done. And so with that being the message to rank and file Democrats, they're not excited about this. So I'm not shocked by this. I'm actually the exact opposite of shocked when we hear about this. Now, I was talking about, before we left, to put this in a little more perspective, we had just covered that Hunter Biden showed up in Congress at his contempt hearing because he did not show up to Congress when he would be under subpoena, and it would be a crime for him to lie about the finances that he shared with his father, Joe Biden, from 2015, while Joe Biden was vice president, all the way up to today. And so he did not want to answer those questions because they could lead to an impeachment of Joe Biden. They could potentially lead to even greater jail terms for himself and or Joe Biden. And since he did not want to risk that, and he didn't want to risk the embarrassment that would come out of revelations that Joe Biden has been lying to the American people for almost 10 years as vice president, and then again here as in the White House now, he just decided he didn't go. And so the Democrats needed to cover this up. They need to hide this. They need to make Hunter Biden both not speak, but yet seem willing to speak. They need to spin it to try and make the Republicans look like the bad guys. It's kind of like with the Houthis. It's kind of like with Hamas. They have to make the good guys look bad. See, Hunter's right there in the room. You could ask him questions right now. That isn't the point. He didn't do it when he was asked to do it. He didn't do it when he would be under oath. And that's the point. That's the big deal. But I think Hunter isn't that stupid. I joked in a short and said, well, Hunter Biden must be on drugs. That would be the only reason why he would show up to the contempt hearing and mock Congress. I mean, it's a surefire way not only to be found guilty, but to get the stiffest penalty you could possibly get You're mocking the very people who are judging the future of your life. If you didn't have your dad being able to pardon you at any given second. So I think it wasn't that the hubris of Hunter Biden. I think Hunter did this because the Democrats also need one other thing. Besides the fact to show Hunter willing to speak, but yet absolutely not speaking whatsoever. Make him look like he wants to speak, but don't let him speak. That was one aspect of it. Make the Republicans look like they're being unreasonable. That's another aspect of it, but I think there's a third, and that is it's a distraction. It is a massive distraction. When everyone was talking this week, we've been talking about Hunter Biden, the contempt case, the charges, who to blame, the past, who in the past also had contempt of Congress. None of that really matters, but it was a distraction from there are 22, maybe more, maybe less, Americans being held hostage by Hamas and tortured as we speak. 15,000 Americans in the Sudan. No one knows what's happened to them. They're lost in the wind. With another 15,000 Americans in Ukraine and in Afghanistan. No one knows what's going on. We have tensions rising in the Middle East, and all of the efforts by the Biden-Harris administration are doing nothing to bring down the temperature and the march towards war. We're seeing that China is absolutely continuing to gear up. North Korea, as we mentioned earlier, are firing off missiles again, threatening and adding to the tensions in China, in the Southeast China Sea, and adding to tensions there, ratcheting up the likelihood of war throughout all of Asia. They needed a way out. And then you have to add in the economy. I mean, you may have noticed you got a lot of messages this week about the economy. The economy is doing fantastic. Inflation is down. Well, no, inflation is not down. Parts of inflation are down. Inflation overall is up. And let me make sure that I prove that, because I know there's going to be people who say, but Mike, I saw the headline. It came from CNN and MSNBC. It's from all those news stations with 10,000 employees. They get paid a couple $100 million a year. They said that inflation is down. No, they didn't say inflation is down. They said parts of inflation are down. They said something like wholesale inflation is down. But if you actually go to the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, BLS.gov, and if you actually look up the data, the most important number you're going to see is right there. Can I highlight that? For the year, inflation is up. And for December, inflation is up. Inflation didn't go down. Parts of inflation went down a little bit. But overall, inflation went up. And it's going to be even worse going into 2024. Considering that the Houthis, part of the reason that you're going to see inflation, there's like three factors that are going to make inflation worse in 2024. And the Biden administration is desperate that you don't tie any of them back to the Biden administration. One is we're printing money. Now, if you remember, last year, we got a budget deal. We got a deal to extend the deficit, the credit rating of the United States, spending of the United States. And we said, okay, the debt ceiling was increased from 33 trillion to 35 trillion. That's a 7% increase. That's happening this year. We're seeing that increase right now. That's a 7.5% increase in the amount of money that's being printed by the United States government that we don't have. That's inflation. That's 7% inflation right there. Guaranteed, no matter what they come out and say, no matter what the government says, no matter how they want to word it, whether it's right or left, that's inflation. Guaranteed. Add to that, we know that there's going to be food inflation. The war in the Ukraine has reduced the amount of fertilizer, wheat, and corn in the world. And this year, 2024, we already know the farmers, because of the war, they're trying to raise more money and be in the fields less because it reduces the amount that they might be shot, the chances of them getting shot. So they're reducing the crop's size that they are planting, and there's less fertilizer being shipped out to the rest of the world. That means food inflation is going to be up in 2024. The soonest that will go down is 2025. So you're looking at an increase in the global food shortage, which we have been talking about on this channel since February of 2022. Buy 10% more food when you go to the store, whether it's rice, flour, wheat, canned foods, foods that will last a long time, staple foods. You need to stock up 10% more every time you go to the store because food's going to be more expensive by the end of the year than it is right now. That's a fact. It's going to guarantee there's going to be less food, more expense. And you add to that the fact that we printed more money, which again is also inflationary, also adding to that increase in the cost. Now, there's not much Joe Biden can do about what's happening with the Ukraine war. That's going to continue until the war ends. Nothing anyone can do about that. The printing of the money, he could have done something about, but he's not. There's a third factor that I think is very important, and that's going to be inflationary as well. And that is, hang on. Sorry, threw me off. I was looking at some of the comments, and I'll get to that in 1 second, Grace. There's a third factor in the inflation that we're going to see. And that's just the shortage from the Houthis. See, in the Red Sea, almost everything you can think of is shipped through the Red Sea, through the Indian Ocean, out to the rest of the world. Oil, raw goods, finished goods, they all go through there. And that's being reduced. The more that the Houthi rebels are attacking ships as they go through the Red Sea, the more of them that they are capturing, including Iran this weekend, captured an American tanker. So they are actively, Iran and the terrorists out of Yemen are capturing ships. Ships are having to go the long way around to try and avoid Yemen and to avoid the terrorists and to avoid Iran. And that means there's a delay. So you're looking at an extension in the amount of time goods are going to take to get to the stores. That's inflationary as well. In fact, and I'm going to get to your comment in a second, Grace, but we know this is the case because, where is it? 1 second, I have it here. Well, here's the tanker. See, I got thrown off when I had to step out. I lost track of where I had everything lined up for the show. But here is the conversation about, and this is from WION News, and this is Iran capturing a U.S. tanker. So, again, everything I'm talking about, this isn't guesswork. This isn't my feeling. These are facts, facts that are verified around the world. And whether or not CNN or MSNBC are showing it to you doesn't mean it's not happening. It just means you don't know. They don't want you to think about it because it might affect the way that you vote. And that's been the biggest factor for them. And I have it. Oh, here it is. Forbes. From Fortune magazine. Here it is. And with Fortune, they are very clear in that what's happening right now in the Middle East, the Houthis, the Red Sea, this is going to be inflationary for 2024. It's going to affect all of the goods that people buy. A ruptured supply chain, rising oil prices, resurgent inflation. Inflation is not going away. This is all. You could say it's the Ukraine, but it's not. This is the Houthi rebels. And they're talking about how these are all coming together to make things more expensive. So, and Joe Biden doesn't want you to think about that. Now, again, can't do anything about the Ukraine farmers and food inflation, but in terms of the United States spending, that is directly the Biden-Harris administration. That's directly the Democrats and to an extent the Republicans as well, because they complied with that. But also the Houthi rebels, well, that's something that Joe Biden definitely has control over. That's something that he has allowed to happen for 2 months. This has given the Houthis the green light to say, well, if he's not doing anything, he hasn't done anything for 2 months. Why would they stop? Why would Iran? Iran is now jumping on board to back up their puppets, the Houthis, the terrorists out of Yemen. They're backing them up, again, with the idea it takes 2 months for Joe Biden to make a decision, to take an action. Why wouldn't they jump in? They have nothing to fear. They have no reason to fear because of the actions that we have seen from the Biden-Harris administration. And these are the people who want to win in 2024. Joe Biden wants to do this again for another 4 years. The message that the world is being told is Joe Biden will act as little as possible, taking as much time as possible to act because he doesn't want to affect his election prospects. He wants to protect the Democratic Party and his reelection. And so he tries to stretch out the news as much as possible so as few people are paying attention as is possible. This is why Iowa Democrats are absolutely deflated. They have no interest in this election. They have no interest in this candidate. It's one of the reasons why RFK Jr. is doing so well. It's because Joe Biden is unappealing and he is ineffective. That is the most damning thing I could say about any president or any elected official. He is ineffective. He is inept. And that is not something that we need in America. Whether you want to vote for a Democrat, an independent, a libertarian, you want to vote for Green Party for all I care. Do you want someone who's inept? You get nothing from that, except the title of saying, I'm in charge. And they get to raise a lot of money. So they get to have power and money. You, the public, get nothing out of that. I think that's pretty important. Now, going back over some of the comments, Grace had mentioned that, let's see, she thinks that Hunter Biden showing up at Congress at his contempt hearing was a way of showing that he is above the law and they can't touch him. I don't disagree with you, Grace, but I think that wasn't enough of a reason. I mean, if he's on drugs again, yes, that is enough of a reason. His ego overrides everything else, and he just goes, look, I can do this because I'm just big and bad and you can't touch me. And the drugs would allow him to do that without thinking about the consequences. But assuming that he is sober, assuming that he's not on drugs, then I think he's getting an answer. And even if he were on drugs, the Biden administration, they have their team. I mean, they're helping to pay for his lawyers. They're there negotiating and discussing things with him, I'm sure, on a regular basis because he reflects on his father. He wouldn't have done that if the Biden administration, the Biden campaign, didn't okay it first because they needed that distraction from people talking about the economy and noticing that, wait a minute, the number of people who are working actually shrank. The unemployment rate stayed the same, 3.7%. And you're hearing Democrats say, well, that's another example of how great Bidenomics is doing, how Bidenflation is doing. No, it's not. The number of people who are actually working in America went down. The total number of people who have jobs, it went down. The number of people who are no longer counted as being part of the workforce, that increased. So you have less people working and more people who don't count whether they're working or not, and your unemployment rate doesn't change. But in fact, there's fewer Americans actually working. They're just not requesting unemployment benefits. That's the only thing. They didn't actually say, hey, I have unemployment insurance, pay me because I'm out of work. That's the only thing that's different here. That's why they get to say, oh, unemployment didn't change. Yes, it did. Employment did change and it went down. And again, you can go to the Bureau of Labor Statistics from the federal government under the Biden administration, and it's their numbers that I'm getting this from. I don't need to make this up. That's what the government is providing itself. They're just counting that you're not going to take the time to go to bls.gov and click the button and look it up. By the way, it's chart A2. Just so you know, to make it easy for you. Click the button, go to unemployment, click it, chart A2. It will give you the numbers. You will see the labor force is down. That's the number of people who work in America. So I don't need to make these numbers up. That's why they had Hunter Biden go and act the fool. Because he's got the escape card. He's got the escape card, which is called Daddy. Daddy is in the White House. And as long as Daddy's in the White House, he has a way out of everything he has done. So even if they claim contempt on him, even if he is convicted of crimes, he can get out. So he's willing to do it. I think that had a lot to do with it. Grace goes on to say, that seems to be a gene that all the Bidens have, this gene for corruption that they have. They all seem to be very corrupt. And when we look at the family, we just see layer upon layer of very damaged people. I mean, going by the public news, Joe Biden taking showers with his teenage niece, something sounds wrong with that. That doesn't sound healthy at all. Look at the money that's being transferred through his brother, through his son, all of it, and through the rest of the family, all of it going back to the big guy, being Joe. And we know Joe's there. We know that he has secret email accounts with tens of thousands of emails that are written to businesses and potentially to other countries, peddling influence. It appears that Joe Biden said, well, I didn't write it because that's not my name, but it's your alternate account. Like people don't know what an alternate account is. Yeah, of course they do. It's 2024. The internet's been with us for 2 decades. We know that people have alternate accounts that aren't their main account, that don't show their name, just so that they can be anonymous. Lots of people do it, especially in politics. And Joe Biden, we know you did it too. So I think this is the distraction that is being used. Grace goes on to say, to be honest, my news or knowledge of what is going on comes from me. Thank you. And red eye guys while I work, or from her husband. And Grace, I appreciate that. Thank you. I take a lot of effort to make sure that we're trying to give you as much information as possible, and the links and the sources, the credible sources around the world, so that you can make up your mind yourself. But I think this tells us where the direction of the 2024 election is going. And it's not a surprise to anyone. Joe Biden is losing. He is absolutely losing. And I think you will see that there will be fewer Democrats coming out to vote for Joe Biden at the end of the day. And that's going to be one of his biggest problems. It's not that Democrats, the people who tend to just vote straight down the party line, which is about 20% of the Democratic Party, about 20% of the Republican Party, there's going to be fewer of them. They just aren't going to come because they're disappointed. And they're not going to bring themselves to vote for Trump. Oh my God, orange man bad. I can't possibly vote for him. And they can't possibly vote for a third party because they've been told, you vote third party, you throw your vote away, which isn't true. So they're going to say, well, if I can't vote for a third party, I can't write in a name, I guess I'll just stay home. My vote doesn't matter. And that's what the Democrats are fighting against right now. That's what they're trying. Everything they're doing is trying to make up for that, either to get Republicans to be fed up and not show up, or to motivate those Democrats and say, no, just stick it to them. Stick it to the MAGA. You've got to come out and do this because this is your vote is a vote against racism. It's a vote against evil. It's a vote against Orange Man bad and MAGA. And It is probably the best piece of propaganda that I have ever seen or read about in the history of everything, that they have somehow taken "Make America Great" and turned that into a negative. To say that you are making America great is evil now. That is mind-boggling. I used to think that Obama had the cake when he said, I'm going to transform America, and didn't finish the sentence. Very often, like many Democrats, didn't finish the sentence. Just says, we're going to transform America. Let's transform America. Into what? That's the key. That's the important part. That's the part that everyone should have been paying attention to. Into what? We're transforming America from what? Into what? But he left that out on purpose, very, very specific, because it sounds very powerful. I'm going to transform America, and let you fill in the blank in your head canon. You're going to fill in the blank and say, oh my God, we're going to transform the poor. We're going to make everyone who's poor rich or middle class. No, that was never part of what he was talking about. Look at his policies. He never said that he would do that. But people think that's what he was trying to do. They want to believe, they feel like that's where he was going. Had nothing to do with his policies. Had nothing to do with where he was intending to take America. We can see that now in hindsight. So that was really wonderful language, but I think it's even more incredible because Trump hit something, he hit a nerve in America and said, make America great. Everyone can agree on that. I mean, even Biden had to agree with it because that's why he came up with Build Back Better, because he couldn't say make America great, that he agrees with it. That's Republican. That's Trump. He knows he's right. So he said, Build Back Better. It's the same thing, but he had to find different words. He had to say it in a different way. He's basically, again, plagiarizing something that Joe Biden is well known for. He's plagiarizing the idea from Trump to make it his own. Build Back Better. Except he didn't. He didn't know how. He never intended to build back better. He intended to just say it to get the vote. He just wanted to win. He wanted to use people's emotions. And we're seeing it again. You need to vote. A vote for Biden is a vote against racism. Why? How? How is it a vote against racism? Where's the racism in the race? Because we've seen Trump. And they always want to emote this. They want to evoke this into people that, well, Trump's a racist. Prove it. Show me. Show me where he has been racist. You might be able to show me, well, he said this and that's sexist. Okay, I'll agree with you on that. He said things that can be understood as sexist and probably are sexist. Okay, I will give you that. Where's his words being racist? He's not. Now, we've heard clips. We've seen the way people have altered the way he has said things, the way they have said, well, he wants to be a dictator. No, he doesn't. That wasn't what he said. Did you listen to the whole thing? No, you heard what the news media summed up for you. You heard the way they cut off his sentence. See, it's not like Obama, who didn't finish the sentence. Trump did. He gave us the full sentence. He said, I want to be a dictator on day one, just day one, to close the border, and then I won't be a dictator. It was a joke. It was a satire. It was very satirical. Listen to the way he said it. Listen to what he said. Listen to the way he repeated it. There's a full thought, unlike Obama, who gave a fragment of a sentence. But I know I'm doing 6th grade English, which I know my entire audience, you've all made it past 6th grade. You all are proficient with English. But we have a generation, we now have 2 generations, who have been raised who don't know how to speak. That's why Grammarly is a thing. Grammarly is the biggest insult against America that I can think of. It is a slap in the face saying, do not think. Grammarly only exists to show you the abject failure of the education system in America, whether that be kindergarten through 12, or higher education. They have completely failed these kids. They can't do basic English. You don't need Grammarly if you graduated 6th grade English. At least when I graduated 6th grade English. Mind you, we're going back decades. I'm old. Fine. But the English language didn't change in my lifetime. And what I learned, basic English, basic sentence structure, did not change. So, but we have a Grammarly generation. We have a generation that needs AI to write for them. And we've seen this with attorneys who have put in briefs written by AIs. We've seen that it's now sports writing is being done by AI. Songs are being made by AI. TV shows are being written by AI. Movies may be made in the future with AI. They don't know how to write. And we see this over and over again. And we've seen it in entertainment. It shows up so brilliantly in when we look at the entertainment. Look at everything that Disney Plus has done. It seems like a computer wrote this, and sometimes it seems like computers are acting it out. And it just tells you, this is why they're getting away with these things. That's how they get away with saying that Make America Great is evil. Because they stopped saying America Great. Because if you say that, people have to think about the words. And if you say, Make America Great is evil, people will look at you and say, you're stupid. That makes no sense. Those words don't mean that. You can't get from one to the other. But if you say MAGA, which doesn't have a meaning, it's an acronym. And you can assign different feelings to that acronym because people aren't thinking Make America Great. They just think MAGA. You say MAGA, you think MAGA, you don't think about the words that are in MAGA. It's kind of like when you see, great example, and again, going back to entertainment, when people talk about S.H.I.E.L.D. in the Marvel movies, you don't think of strategic homeland intervention, and I forget the rest of it. You don't think of the individual words that are S.H.I.E.L.D.'s acronym. You just think S.H.I.E.L.D. S.H.I.E.L.D. protects America. That's it. That's what you think of. That's what the acronym is for. That's why you use it. But you don't think about the individual words, that they're strategic and homeland and intervention. You don't think about that. But that's why they use MAGA. Because you don't think about Make America Great. You just think MAGA. And that's why they do this. Because they have trained an entire generation to not think. Again, that's why we have Grammarly. Grammarly for college students. College students are writing papers. You've seen the commercials on YouTube and Twitter, all the rest. Oh yeah, use Grammarly to write your business, to do your resume. Write it to use your cover letter. Use Grammarly to write your thesis paper. You're a moron. That's what they're telling you. You're too stupid to write for yourself. You didn't make it out of 6th grade. These are kids who should never have graduated. Let me go back to some of the comments here. Because I've been talking for a little bit here. So let's see. Cool Roy says, yes, the Democrats are wagging their finger in our faces, always pushing us to war. They love war. Some of them, I would say, do love war. I think some of them want to destroy America. I mean, if you're talking about Ilhan Omar, if you're talking about Rashida Tlaib, Cori Bush, Anna Presley, the squad, absolutely. Jamal Bowman, and the reason is because they want to destroy the Constitution. They've told us that. They want to get rid of it. They want to replace it. So they want to destroy America. So, yeah, some of them do. I agree with you. Dow says, besides, we have a 4-year track record for Trump's policies. Yes, that's the other thing that's very important, which is, again, why they can't let you focus on that. They keep demonizing him. When I was speaking, do I have it? I was speaking earlier this week about Gloria J. Brown Marshall. It's a silly long name. She's a John Jay professor of constitutional law. And she was talking with Deutsche Welle, DW News, about international politics. Now, why is she talking about international politics when she knows United States constitutional law? I have no idea. They're as far apart as you could possibly get. That's like letting a painter do brain surgery. They have nothing in common, and they're not related. But she is part of the intelligentsia. She's the big brain. She writes plays. She gets an Emmy for her work. She's very popular with Hollywood, which, again, tends to tell you why she's doing what she does. She trades on race. She trades on sex. That's her bread and butter. She uses people's emotions about race and sex to sell and make her money. And her side job is being a professor of constitutional law. And she's on Deutsche Welle talking about international politics that she knows nothing about. And she's trying to convince the audience and the anchor of Deutsche Welle's news, trying to convince him that President Trump is going to create World War III. There's no justification. The anchor has to ask, but we have a track record. We have 4 years of Trump. He didn't do it last time. Why would he create World War III now? Why would he do that? He wasn't a dictator last time. Why would he be a dictator now? And as much as the left loves to try and harp on this, if Trump was truly trying to be a dictator, he had 300,000 people. That is a mid-sized city. 300,000 people surrounding the Capitol. If he wanted to be a dictator, he could have done it right then and there. He had enough people to take over the country. There's no question on that. If he wanted to do it, he could have done it. He had the people, he had the time, the momentum, everything. He was in power at that moment. He could have done it. Why would he do it in the future? See, these are questions that come up when you think about this, when you think through what they're saying. But Gloria Brown Marshall, she doesn't want you to think, she wants you to feel. And she's feeling, and she's trying to convince people of her feelings as if they were facts, backed up by the fact she goes, I have a degree. I don't care about your PhD. You have no idea what you're talking about. I will be more than happy, Gloria Brown Marshall, to debate international politics if you would like to, because you know nothing about it, and I've been doing it for 2 decades. And you know what? That's my area of expertise. I'll be more than happy to embarrass you because you know nothing about what you're talking about. If I talk about constitutional law, I expect to be embarrassed as well because that's your area of expertise, supposedly. I think you're more an expert on race trading on race and sexism. I think you're more into that progressive mindset, and you'll definitely trump me on trying to get people's feelings going a certain way. I'm not a feelings guy. I deal with facts. She doesn't. And that's what the left is doing in this election right now. Let's see. Grace says, I remember when I went to college the second time, the professors had to tell the students that they were expected to write their essays and reports in full sentences, not phrases or text speak or acronyms. That's how low it has gotten. That's the bar. This reminds me of George Carlin had a great line about that. You're just smart enough to run the machines, too dumb to ask questions. That's what we are getting now. They don't know. And here's why that's important. If you don't know writing is a function of thought. Speech is a function of thought. There are those thoughts in your head. And when we speak, when we write, language is conveying the thoughts in our head to someone else. And it is important because if we shape, not only are the words we use shaped by our knowledge, but the words we use shape our thoughts. I don't know how to explain this clearly, but it's like putting a limiter on our car. If you don't know better words, you can't convey better ideas. That's very important. You can't tell people better thoughts if you don't have them. If you have this image in your mind, if you want to describe the color red, but you don't know the word red, the closest you can get is what? Yellow? Orange? You'll never get to red. People will never understand because you don't know how to say red. And so you will fail because you are limited. That word doesn't exist. And you can get closer and closer to the word red, but you will never convey that message because it will always miss something. Just because you don't know the word, you're limited. And that's what we are doing now with these kids. And that's what they rely on so that they don't pay attention to the details. They only think of MAGA, not Make America Great. So this plays into the election because we're trying to demonize Americans for having a First Amendment right, which is to be able to speak about whatever they think about the government, whether you love the government or hate the government. And I don't care if that means you're more progressive than the average person. You could be communist, you could be part of the Green Party, you could be a libertarian, you could be a conservative. It doesn't matter. Whatever your views are in America, you should be able to say them and to express them and share them with others and try to convince other people why your idea is right. That's what makes America different. That we can actually do that without the secret police showing up at your door, shooting you in the head in the middle of the street. Which is what happens in dozens upon dozens of countries around the world. If you say something about, if you go to the Sudan right now and you say something about one of the warlords that they don't like, their people will shoot you dead in the middle of the street. That's what's happening in the world. That's a reality. You don't have that in America, at least not at this moment. You don't have that in America at this moment, but there are people who are suggesting it. Listen to what the intelligentsia, the academics are saying about talking about Hamas. Look at the way they're speaking about Donald Trump and MAGA. You're evil by existence. This is critical race theory. You're white, you must be evil. You're black, you must be a victim. You don't have options here. You don't have choices. You don't get to branch out and be independent. You have no agency. And this is how they want you to vote, without agency, without thought, without your input. You are a machine. You do what you are told. Here's your category. Your category votes like this. Don't think, don't speak, don't even ask questions. That's what your category does. Go on. And I am so upset about that. And we're seeing that reflected in the increase in apathy. The number one reason why people aren't voting, it's not because black people don't have a right to vote. They do. No one is stopping. Any black American in America can vote if they want to. They just don't want to. Same thing about every other group, Hispanics, Asians, white, I don't care, wherever they're from. The only Americans who aren't voting in elections are Americans who don't want to vote in elections or convicted felons because they lost the right, because they committed a crime. And they knew if they committed the crime and got caught, that was part of the punishment. They lost their right to vote. Now, I know there's people who say, well, convicted felons should get their right to vote back. I'm not really won over on that argument, but that's a different argument. But everyone else in America that wants to vote can vote. There is no one stopping anyone from going to vote in America, unless you happen to be part of the Black Panthers, and they will stop people from going to vote, as we have seen in video during elections. They have done that. But everyone else can go and vote however you want, whenever you want. And if you can't get there, every state has some degree of mail-in ballot. So you can vote. It's never been, and it's not because, oh, well, there's not enough time. That's a lie. That is a lie. Oh, but I can't make it. Okay, even if it was true that you somehow, for some reason, on election day, could not find 5 minutes to get into a line and vote, and you didn't, for some reason, you couldn't mail in your ballot the day before, for some reason, almost every single state has at least a week, if not a month of time for you to mail your ballot in. So you don't even have the excuse of, I can't wait on the line, my job won't give me time, they're not open late enough. That's a lie. Because you don't need any of that, and you can still vote. Virtually any state, you have at least a week beforehand, if not a month before the election, to mail in your ballot. Every state in the United States. You can't tell me you can't vote if you want to vote in America. They're not voting because they don't like the candidates. Because they have too many people who are ineffective and inefficient. And that's why we are watching the number of people who are voting, presidential election or any other election, is going down and down and down. And nothing that is being done, especially everything being suggested by Democrats, none of it is making people vote. You can give people 6 months to vote. They're not going to vote more than they vote already. It's not because of time. It's the caliber of the candidates they have to choose from. They suck. Overwhelmingly, no one trusts most of the people in Congress or in elected office because they are useless. And so people don't have a reason to vote. More and more people don't have a reason to vote, and so they're not voting. Does that make sense? Does that make sense about that? Now, when you combine this lack of desire to vote with a candidate who is less than appealing, we're talking about Joe Biden, a candidate, Joe Biden, who can't walk across a flat stage without falling over, a candidate who can't speak to the public for 30 minutes without making up entire phrases, if not sentences, just making up words or completely switching subjects in the middle of that sentence or that paragraph. That's unappealing. And when he is being lucid, when he is comprehensible, Joe Biden is telling you things like, the economy is great, you just don't understand. I think I do. I pay bills. I work, I get paid, I pay bills. I understand the economy. I may not be able to do macroeconomics like Paul Krugman, but he's got it wrong too. Often we have his history too. We have his track record. He's been wrong as much as anybody I can pull off the middle of the street. So you can't tell me, oh, well, I've got a degree, so I know. No, you don't. No, most of them don't. And you can't say, I pay bills, so I understand the economy. That's true. That is a fact. Because you are living that economy. You are feeding that economy. You are part of that economy. You can't say they don't understand. Yet Joe Biden has consistently, him, his press secretary, his staff have consistently said, people just don't understand how much better things are. Well, wait a minute. Inflation is up 17% under Joe Biden. That's a fact. Food inflation is up 12% under Joe Biden. That is a fact. Has it been higher? Yes. Is it down from the peak? Absolutely. That doesn't mean inflation is down. It means inflation is down from the peak. It's not as high as it was, but it is higher than it has been. Am I better off in 2024 than I was in 2019? No. No, you are not. You're not better. In fact, you can even say, are you better off 2023 than in 2022? The answer is no, you are not. And that's something that people are living with. That is a reality. But they're trying to cover that up because they're trying to fortify the 2024 election. And we're seeing that in what's happening in Iowa with the excuse about snowstorms. We're seeing that in the other states as well, where they're denying people the right to write in ballots. That's Colorado, that's Maine. That's voter nullification. You don't get a choice. The state, the government, has made the choice for you. You only get to pick X who is on the ballot. This is something we see in authoritarian governments. I've talked about this before. That you have a choice of the dead guy or the one that's in power. Those are your two choices. You can pick the dead guy or the one who's alive and in power. And if you pick the dead guy, by the way, someone's going to be knocking on your door after the election. So which one are you going to vote for? That's what authoritarian governments do. There's no difference in saying, oh, well, you can't vote for Trump. Why not? I'm an American citizen. How dare the government tell me I can't vote for them? I can vote for the rent too damn high guy if I want to. I can put him in if I want to. I can vote for Popeye if I want to. I'm an American citizen. It's my vote. It's who I think. And sometimes I can use my vote as a statement, as a political protest. And I'll pick Popeye or the rent too damn high guy and say, you know what? None of your people are addressing my concern. None of your people are actually fulfilling the job. I want you to know that. And the easiest way to do that is to tell you that here's a name either that you should have had on the ballot, or more importantly, here's a name I would rather a fictional character than the cartoons you have put up for election in this campaign. That's what your vote does. That's the power of the vote. It is political commentary. It is satire. It is changing the direction of the country. If everyone in America decided to vote for the rent too damn high guy, if even 3%, 4%, 5%, 1% of the nation voted for the rent too damn high, then that is a signal for the Congress, hey, people think rent's too high. Maybe we should start looking at that. Maybe the Congress and the states should look into why is rent so high that so many people, 1% of the people of America, say the rent's too damn high. Let's get on that because that's what the voters are interested in. That's an issue we should be paying attention to. Does that make sense? See, that's what our vote is supposed to be about. But Colorado and Maine have decided you don't have that power. You don't have that right. That they have decided for you and said, no, you can only vote for who they approve of. The second that they say that your vote has to be approved, says you don't have a vote. If they can pick, if they're telling you, here's the list of choices you have, then you don't have a choice. It doesn't matter who's on that list. It doesn't matter if your guy or is not on that list. Your guy, your gal, whatever you want to call it. If they're not on that list, then it doesn't matter who's on the list. It's a list that you didn't make, which means you don't have agency. You're just picking from the choices they gave you. They have the power. They put the list together. They gave you the list. The only thing you can do is pick from their choices, which means you are not free. That is a destruction of your vote. Your vote has been nullified because it has been reduced to the approved choices, not your choice. I think that's very important. And that's something that no one wants to talk about in 2024. Nobody wants to talk about this. The mainstream news media is running away from that. They don't want to talk about the voter nullification because they're too busy trying to justify why they are limiting your choices and to justify why you should only pick Joe Biden. They have a vested interest in this. And if you look at all of the media, look at the headlines, look at the articles, look at how they are speaking about this, they are trying to give Joe Biden every excuse, every opportunity that they possibly can to convince you that you should give him another 4 years, that you should give him more power, even though they can't point to, and he got this right, that this is better for you. Gun control is not better. Crime is not better. Violent crime is not better. Inflation is not better. Safety is not better. Again, 172 known and or suspected terrorists entered the United States in 2023 alone. That is over 50 times more than in 2020. That is a ridiculously huge number. 546 known or suspected terrorists tried to get into America. They think this is their time. They think that they can get away with it. They don't think that America's strong. They think that this is their time to infiltrate and to destroy America. You've got Iran, you've got China, you've got Russia, North Korea are all piling up against America. That's not a strong leader. And we're seeing that reflected in the polls over and over again. Let me show you what I mean. So we are hearing from so many people that, well, orange man bad, orange man bad. Donald Trump is evil, bad, bad, bad. So the only choice, you've got to pick Nikki Haley. You've got to pick Ron DeSantis. You've got to pick someone else. Why? They keep trying to convince you. You should be talking to someone else. They had debates on Fox and on CNN. And from the very first Fox debate all the way through to the most recent CNN debate, no one cared. Nobody cared. The public never cared because every single one of those candidates is losing to Trump by double digits, most of them by over 20 points. No one cared. Every single one of these people are running for basically the runner-up. They are the extra in the wings. They are there for the catastrophe. They are the catastrophe choice. If Donald Trump were to have a heart attack as his private jet gets struck by lightning and crashes into the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, if all of that were to happen during a blizzard, then you would have a choice of maybe Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis. And that's what the Fox News debates, that's what the CNN debates, that's what they were all about. Oops, forgot to put my face up here. Hi. That's what this is all about. They're talking about, well, Nikki Haley's going to make her come back. She's going to lose Iowa. That is a fact. It is such a given fact that Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis are going to lose Iowa that, where is it? Here we go. This is how obvious it is. Okay? Mainstream news media, what are they telling you? This is NPR. And they are telling you Nikki Haley is joking that New Hampshire will correct Iowa. Well, think about what she's saying here. She's going to lose in Iowa. Ron DeSantis are going to lose in Iowa. And by the way, that's exactly what the Iowa Caucus is polling. There's about a 20, 30-point difference between Donald Trump and anyone else. I don't care who else you want to pick. No one cares. They're not important. So she's already given up on Iowa. She's going to lose. Ron DeSantis knows he's going to lose. Chris Christie was never, ever an option, ever. He was a Democrat talking point. That's it. He was getting paid. Chris Christie was paid to be on the stage to be a Democrat talking point. That's it. He was there to discourage Republicans from going out and voting. That was his job, and he got paid millions for it. He's miserable. Forget about him. So, and I'll get to Vivek in just 1 second. So we can see this. And why is she looking for New Hampshire? Well, New Hampshire's looking exactly the same. New Hampshire, we have Trump leading with approximately, what was it? It's a 14-point lead. Are you kidding? Look, it's all very clear. The public has already made the choice. The Democrats, the establishment of government, don't like the choice you have made because it's not on the list they wrote. It's not the choice they presented to you. It's you making a choice on your own, and they don't like that. Again, they want you to choose from what they approved. And if you're not voting on their list, then you have agency, you have power, they don't. And they don't like that. That's the biggest thing that's going on in 2024 in the primaries. This is about who has the power over America. Who write in, whomever you vote for, that's where the power is. In you, because you are making the choice. And that's why you should be voting. I don't care if you vote for RFK or if you're voting for Joe Biden or you're voting for Donald Trump. You need to go out and vote. That's the first thing. First thing is you must vote, because the second you don't, you aren't a human being. You don't have power. Human beings vote. If you don't vote, you're not a human being. And as for the illegal aliens in America, you might as well not be a human being because you don't get to vote either. So I'm being very, very clear. I don't care if you're a citizen or not a citizen. If you're not, well, actually, I do care. Let me reword that. In this case, being a citizen is the same as being an illegal alien. That if you don't vote, you don't exist. You have no place in politics. You have no power. And I don't care what it is you could believe in, it's never going to happen. It's just that simple. You didn't vote. Whatever it is you support doesn't exist. I don't care how good it is. I don't care how noble it is. I don't care how virtuous it is. I don't care if it's going to be right in time or is absolutely correct today. I don't care if it's backed by feelings or by facts. Whatever it is you believe, if you don't vote, doesn't matter. Completely meaningless. I've said this to people in person, in real life. I've actually walked up, I've had conversations. People come up to me and go, well, I wish things happen. I said, well, did you vote? And they're like, no. I said, well, stop talking to me. There's nothing you need to say. Nothing you said matters. I don't care what your fact, but I have these reasons. I don't care. I have these facts. I have all this documentation, all this evidence. Useless, meaningless, zero. Burn it. It means nothing. Why? You didn't vote. So no matter what it is you think is important, it is absolutely meaningless. Why? You didn't vote. So you didn't have enough confidence in whatever it is you believe in to vote. Why should I? Why should anyone? And by the way, every politician, if you could pull them away from the microphones and guarantee them anonymity, they will tell you they don't care what people who don't vote think because they don't vote. They're not important. That's Democrats, that's Republicans, Libertarians, that's the Green Party, that's the Communist Party of America, the Democratic Socialists of America. There isn't a political party in the world that cares about people who don't vote. I want you to understand that. It's so clear. I want you to vote in 2024, but I want you to understand, if you don't, no one cares what you think. There's nothing that you can do that will ever change that. Because the only person politicians care about, the only person that actually has an impact on the direction of this nation are people who vote. It's harsh, and nobody wants to say that to your face. Nobody in the news media or in political commentary wants to be honest with you. I have always been honest with you, even when it's brutal. And the brutal answer is, if you're not voting, it doesn't matter for a second, whatever it is you think, because it's useless. This is why you need to vote. The moment you are voting, people care. Once you start voting, people care a lot. And they will try and convince you how to vote. Oh, you're a woman. Well, you should vote like this. You're black. You should vote like that. You have this religion. You should vote like this. You have this sexual preference and sexual identity. Then you should be voting like this. They will give you lots of ways to tell you how they want you to vote, but they care about your vote. They're after the vote. They will go to great lengths to try and convince you why you should vote. Well, you're this color, this sex, this sexual identity, this religion. That means you must vote this way, right? Everyone else, like you, is voting this way, and you're like them, right? You're all monolithic. You're all the same, so you must be the robot to go down the road the same path those other people went down. You vote like this. They have a vested interest. It's very important. That's why Colorado took Donald Trump off the ballot. That's why Maine is taking him off the ballot. Because they don't want you to have power. And they want you to be nothing. They'd rather see no one show up than for you to make a choice that isn't approved by them ahead of time. Because if you're picking someone they didn't choose, they don't have power. It is that simple. This is what the entire ballot procedure, the whole battle about names on ballots and write-ins, it's all about power. Who has the power in America? The establishment, the political elites, the government, or you? It is that simple. It doesn't get any more difficult. It doesn't matter if Donald Trump committed a crime or didn't commit a crime. By the way, he didn't. I don't care how you feel. I feel like he made a crime. You can feel anything you want, but he didn't. But I feel like he's a bad guy. Fantastic. Don't care. That's not legal. Has no power whatsoever. You can have whatever feeling you want. Does not change the facts. He's innocent. Will piss off a bunch of progressives right now. Their heads are exploding. But who cares? Because, one, if you didn't vote, I don't care. And two, that's not a fact. That's a feeling. Have your feeling. If you want to vote based on a feeling, go for it. That's on you. That's, again, your choice. But vote. I think it's a stupid reason to vote. I think it's one of the most wasted votes you could possibly make is, I made a vote because of my feelings. Well, then you're stupid. Because your feelings will change in 5 seconds. Someone can tell you one piece of information. They can give you one sentence and your feelings might change. You just wasted your vote on a feeling, which is temporary, which is fluid. No one has the same feeling all the time. Your feelings change over time, always, consistently, because you're a human being. You're not a robot. So you don't have that same feeling. So it is, if you're voting based on a feeling, that is fleeting. That is temporary. That has nothing to do with anything hard fact, any science, any consequence. You might as well just throw a dart at the board. What's the point? Okay. Vivek. I was asked a question earlier about Vivek Ramaswamy. And do I think Vivek Ramaswamy is a, quote, real MAGA? End quote. That's a catch-22 kind of question. I think Graham asked me that question out of California. And so let me try and I promised I would answer it, and I'm going to answer it. So let me do that now. Is Vivek Ramaswamy an American? Yes. Can I conceive of a reason why any American wouldn't want America to be as great a nation as it could be? No. If you are an American, this is your country, whether you're a naturalized citizen or born here, I would imagine that as long as you are sane, you want this to be the best nation it can be. Theoretically, even progressives believe that. They want America to be the best. That's why they believe in DEI. They think it's going to make America better. They think that's going to make America great. I mean, it's a warped logic. It makes no sense. It doesn't have any basis in reality or fact. That's all their feelings, their hopes and dreams. I think they're smoking too many drugs. But hey, that's still a belief that will make America great. So to say, does Vivek Ramaswamy believe making America great? I think so. Other than Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib, I think pretty much everyone in America, every American citizen, want America to be as great a country as it can be. But are we talking about making America great, or are we talking about that weird MAGA movement thing that the left often describes? Which would mean, is Vivek Ramaswamy a Republican? Is he right-leaning? That's a different question. It's a very different question. We should look at it in that way. Americans, regardless of political ideology, should want to make America great. But within that, does that make you conservative? Does that make you Republican? Does that make you right-leaning? No. So is Vivek Ramaswamy right-leaning? Is he conservative? I would say he is right-leaning. Is he a Republican? Not really. Is he a conservative? On some issues. But then again, that's kind of like Donald Trump. Donald Trump isn't really a Republican. Is he conservative? On some issues. Is he right-leaning? Absolutely. But he's not a Republican. Not in a traditional sense of what a Republican is. Which is why I have some issues with some of the things he's thought of in the past. Same thing with Vivek Ramaswamy. At the same time, I don't think Vivek is a real political creature. He doesn't have the experience. He doesn't have the knowledge. He hasn't been doing this very long. He was motivated to get into the race, and he has a lot of money, so he was able to get his name out there, to get his ideas out there. I have no problem with that whatsoever. That's what the election system is for. Not everyone who runs for an election is running to win. Some people are running to push an idea, to get the best idea out there. Again, the rent is too damn high guy. He wasn't running to win. He was running to get attention to the fact that the rent is too high and to try and find solutions to get the price of rent lowered. I stand by him. Did he have any chance in hell of winning? No, that wasn't the point. The point was to highlight an issue that he thought was important. Is Vivek doing that? Sometimes, yeah. He's able to push certain issues and to make us aware of certain elements, certain aspects of America that are changing that we may not want to see changed. So that I do believe he's right-leaning. I think he's conservative. I don't think he's a Republican. There is a difference there, a very strong difference. And I also don't believe that Vivek Ramaswamy is establishment, which is yet another difference. Because you can be a Republican without being an establishment Republican. There's a big difference. Same thing with Democrats. You can be a Democrat without being an establishment Democrat. As an example, the rank and file, the guy, your neighbor down the street, may be a Democrat, but Chuck Schumer is an establishment Democrat. Nancy Pelosi is an establishment Democrat. Adam Schiff is an establishment Democrat. Eric Swalwell is an establishment Democrat. AOC is a progressive. Ilhan Omar is a progressive, an anti-American in my belief. Rashida Tlaib is anti-American, full stop, that's it. But there is a difference there, and I hope that's illustrating that a little bit for you. There's a big difference between establishment, which is about all the establishment, right and left, are about maintaining their power base in a very few elite hands with very few answers to any of the problems. They have lots of problems, no solutions. Their best idea, their solution to almost everything is kick it down the road. Kick the issue down the road, let someone else deal with it. That it will be answered by someone else. And that's their big answer to everything in the establishment, because it's not about fixing anything. They need lots of problems to make people very upset, to make them rely on the establishment so that they can stay in power and they don't actually do anything. That's not their job. Their job is to keep things just as they are, to keep the status quo going. People may disagree with me on this. I'm interested in hearing what other people think. So there's a difference between establishment and whatever political faction. And I think, is Vivek establishment? Absolutely not. Absolutely. Mitt Romney is establishment in terms of Republicans. Absolutely, 100%. Mitch McConnell is establishment, 100%. No question about it. Vivek Ramaswamy is not establishment. And again, I don't think he's a Republican, but I do think he's right-leaning, and I do believe he's mostly conservative, based on the answers I've heard him say about a lot of issues. But he's also somewhat naive. He doesn't understand. He has no concept of international, well, I shouldn't say it like that, but he has no concept of international politics, the interplay of different countries, to understand how these things are coming about, or how the United States, through strong leadership, can change the direction of these events, and how we can apply it and where we maybe shouldn't apply that pressure. I don't think he understands that very clearly. That's because he hasn't been in politics for a very long period of time. His knowledge seems to be very much rooted in the current day, not the issues that brought us to this current problem. But I give him this. He's at least trying to find an answer to most of the issues. Most of the time, he's trying to get to an answer. He doesn't know the answer because he doesn't really know politics. And that's, I think, a big difference. So I think it's unfair when people say, well, is Vivek even a real MAGA? That's like people saying, Mike, you're a Trumper. What the hell is that supposed to mean? And again, I don't mean any disrespect to Graham or anyone else who may ask that question. I'm not saying this to mock you or any kind of way. No. But when people tell me, Mike, you're just a Trumper, what does that mean? Trump is a man. He's not a verb. What's a Trumper? What does that even mean? Oh, well, you just obey Trump. Do I? Have you actually heard me ever say that? Did you listen to anything I've actually said? No, what you're saying is you feel like I am against what you believe, okay? And because Trump also is against what you believe, I must be the same thing. I now have somehow morphed into being Orange Man Bad Jr., because he has a son. So I'm yet another clone of him, somehow with, a better suntan, because I have ideas that don't match your ideas. That doesn't make any sense. The left is stupid when they say that. They sound insanely dumb and like parrots. And they think this is insulting to me. They think that, oh, you're a Trumper. That's an insult. No, it means you have no idea what you're talking about. You can say I'm a reactionary. You can say I'm conservative or a hardcore conservative. You can say I'm a Republican. You can say I'm far right. You can say a lot of things that a lot of people have said, and you might have some degree of accuracy on it. People call me reactionary. Fantastic. There's a lot of descriptors you can try and put on me, but to say I'm a Trumper means nothing. That's an empty statement. Ooh, see, I've insulted you. No, you haven't. You've told me you don't know what you're talking about. There's a lot of things you can say that are actually very descriptive, that actually apply to the things I've actually said. That says nothing. That says you don't know anything about politics. And so same thing when people say MAGA. I don't find that to mean anything. Well, you're MAGA. What does that mean? Everyone should want, every person in the world, I don't care what country you're in, if you're in Zimbabwe, you want to make Zimbabwe great. If you're in Poland, you want Poland to be great. If you're in Timbuktu, you want Timbuktu to be great. It is that simple. It is a universal constant. That's not something unique or different. But it has become, and again, this is why I think it's the best propaganda I've seen in the late 20th, early 21st century. This is phenomenal propaganda that we have turned something that is inherently positive into some kind of demonic chant. MAGA, oh, MAGA, oh, lightning's coming. He said MAGA. It's crazy. Dow says, the only way to really show whether or not someone is genuine is to experiencing them doing the thing they said they were going to do, which I agree with. We have to see Vivek live by his ideals. Is he doing that? Is he living up to the standards he is professing? Is he living up to the standards of what he wants the world to be? That's a different question. And the answer to that, in my experience of watching him, is not always. Which makes him an imperfect human being, fantastic. Makes him an imperfect politician, okay. And it reemphasizes that, I believe, he needs more experience. He doesn't know how politics works. Not on a local level, definitely not on an international level. He doesn't know enough yet. He needs more experience, which is why I say he's a member of cabinet. He won't be VP. He's already said he doesn't want to be VP, but then again, everyone says they don't want to be VP, they want to be president, and then they say, okay, I'll be VP. Look at Kamala Harris. Wanted to be president. No one else wanted her to be president. No Democrats wanted her to be president. And when they came to her and said, hey, how about this? Swallow crow and say, ooh, I misunderstood Joe Biden and become VP. And she said, okay. And suddenly the man that she was insulting on stage, national TV, about being a racist, suddenly was my best buddy, Joe Biden. So, does Vivek want to be VP? No. But would he take it? Probably. Probably. Let me go on. Dow says, actions speak loudly, especially if those actions meet with positive results in an effective and efficient manner. Well, that's the goal for every politician. We want them to be efficient and effective. That takes experience. It takes running for an elected office, reading the bills, understanding the interplay between different countries, having the negotiations with them, watching the negotiations play out. Look at how the nations are reacting, what they are saying, which is what I've been doing for 2 decades. So, he needs a little bit more of that. Wait a minute. Graham is back. Hey, Graham. Graham says, context for is Vivek true MAGA? Trump wrote on Truth Social that Vivek is not MAGA. Okay. So that's a different context. And that's where it goes to that idea of what is MAGA. And again, I say, does Vivek want to make America great? Yes. Is Vivek a hardcore Republican? No. Is Vivek the same kind of Republican as Donald Trump? No. They have some things they align on, absolutely, but they're not the same. Because they have very different experiences, very different political experiences. So they're not the same, and their mannerisms are different. And their goals and their outcomes are different. So I think that's important. So Trump may say that, and in the sense that if he is saying, does Vivek want to make America great? I think he's wrong. Yeah, Vivek does. Is Vivek a follower? Does he agree with Donald Trump? No. And I really don't like that people are using MAGA as some kind of moniker, as some kind of identifier. It's not a political system. It just isn't. Republican, conservative, independent, libertarian. Those are ideas. Those are ideologies. I don't know that Make America Great is. It's just a fact. But maybe I'm wrong. People can tell me if I didn't get that. Dow says Vivek has no way to really demonstrate without being in office. If he's in the cabinet, that would be one way he could do it. If he's out advocating for laws, if he's actually writing laws and submitting them and advocating for them, that's another way that Vivek could do it. Dow goes on to say, it's far more likely that we vote Trump into office for the second term to finish what he started and then move on to someone untried. Well, that's probably what's going to happen in 2028. Trump wins, and no matter how Trump does from 2024 until 2028, the 2028 election will be a brand new choice. It will be someone completely different. Grace says, yes, but that is only because he is competition at this time. Trump wouldn't support a competitor. Well, yeah, that could be it. Trump could be just trying to downplay Vivek so that he has less competition. But Vivek really isn't a competitor. The best he ever got up to was about 11%, which is what I predicted at one point early in after the first debate. But after the first debate, and he peaked, and that was it. Because after that point, yes, he's got energy, he has appeal, but he has no substance because he has no experience. So I don't think anyone really has ever looked at Vivek as a true competitor. I think they've looked at him as, does he fit a cabinet position? Is he someone who will support or detract? Is he going to be more like a Chris Christie, or is he going to be more like Tim Scott? I think that's what most people were thinking about. Come here. So I think that's really what we're looking at here. By the way, folks, here's my puppy. He's very upset right now. Don't know why. Probably because no one's paying attention to him. Let me see. Let me go on. Graham is talking that he agrees with Dow. And Graham goes on to say, to my understanding, MAGA, Making America Great, is a movement. There are those who are genuinely MAGA and those who like to camouflage themselves among whatever has momentum only for their own benefit. Well, you're not wrong on that. I get that. I mean, I understand what you're saying. And again, I think turning MAGA into, it's not like the Tea Party, which is taxed enough already, which was a political movement. And I see there's a difference there. I don't know if I can convey it in words as much. Again, I have nothing against people who want to be MAGA, who believe in making America great. I think that is essential to everyone in the nation. Everyone should want that. Anyone who doesn't want that is imbecilic. They don't understand what they are saying. And that's why I don't see it as a movement, because movements have restrictions. They have specifics that they're looking for. To make America great isn't, how do I word that? It doesn't have restrictions. It doesn't have limitations per se. It's make America great. Do we need a trade deal? Make the trade deal. Do we need to build up a military? Build up the military. Do we need to change the generals? Change the generals. It's whatever it takes to make America great, to make it a better nation. That's fantastic. I don't find that to be a movement. I find that to be life. Now, again, that's my understanding of it. There's nothing wrong with it, but to say, I'm MAGA, well, yeah, of course you are. If you're a human being, you should be. If you're an American, let me rephrase that. If you're an American citizen that is alive, well, hell yeah, you should be MAGA. But that's separate of anything else you may be. But again, that may be my differentiation on that. That I understand MAGA is life. It is the same as saying, I drink water. You should drink water. You want to stay alive, right? Drink water. It's essential for life. It's essential for America to exist, to be great. That's not a movement. It's really, okay, you say you're MAGA, which are really, most people, whether they intend it or not, what they're really saying is they are a non-establishment conservative. That's what they're actually talking about. That's the thing that they're really highlighting. And we've allowed the left to corrupt the term, to corrupt our ideology, our thinking. And instead of saying, well, that just means you're a conservative American, you're a right-leaning conservative, we've turned it into MAGA, which can then be demonized, which I think is bad for the country. I think ultimately it's bad for the nation that we demonize making America great. Does that make sense? Does that make sense to everyone? I don't know if it does. I mean, I get it, but now I understand, Graham, some people are thinking, Dow saying, well, it's MAGA is an ideal with emotional attachments. It's based on a movement of national populism, not to be confused with the jingoistic nationalism, which is often tossed around by the left, of course. Now, because being a nationalist is not a bad thing, per se. What type of nationalist you are, how you envision that, how you actualize that, that's a very different thing. But being nationalist is like being patriotic. It's not in and of itself. That's not negative. But again, we have been pushed by media and some political organizations to view traditional ideas, historic ideas, definitions, and just they're trying to reclaim them and reshape them, to reimagine them, to redefine them. And I think that's been dangerous and bad for our nation. I truly do. Now, Graham goes on to say, the question should be, and he's asking this of Dow, but I'll take it as well. Who is the best to carry the MAGA movement at this moment in time? Who, and I would, and again, I read that as, who is the best person to result in the best America at this time? Who's the best candidate to result with the best America at this time? That's the way we should think about that statement. That's the way we should think about our elections. Who is the best candidate to have the best outcome to create the best America at this moment? That's how every election should be looked at. Every candidate should be looked at from that point of view for every elected office. I've been saying that from the moment before I ran for elected office in 2013 all the way to today. I've said that it's over a decade, and I will continue to say that. And who is the best candidate that could create the best outcomes to lead to the best America at this moment? Of the field of people that I know of out there, that would be, for me, I would say that's Donald Trump. Because he has a track record, and that track record is mostly successful, and I don't care whether you're left, right, or anything else, if you're looking at his actual history, if we're looking at what he actually did, forget about the rhetoric, forget about how it was said, forget about how the news media felt about it, forget about how the left feels about Orange Man Bad. I don't care about any of that. What did he do? What he did, was it positive for America? Was it positive for the world? The answer to these questions is yes. It was positive for America. It was positive for the world. It had overall good outcomes, and America was in a better position with him and his policies than without him. And we know that because we saw America before Trump with the Obama administration, which was going downhill and disrespected, and global instability was increasing. And now we see after Trump, we see again worse income, world is less stable, we're seeing more problems, and the country is becoming more and more divided. So, yeah, and Obama was dividing the nation as well. Trump actually started uniting the nation. You notice no one ever refers back to the 2019 slogan of the Biden campaign, Uniter in Chief, that he wanted to be the Uniter in Chief. Does anyone think that that campaign promise provided by Joe Biden in 2019 and 2020, that he would unite America, does anyone believe that? That he did that? Can anyone point to any evidence where he's united America? He hasn't. He is divided. And I don't just mean in DEI. I mean in every aspect. And that's why he won't run on that anymore. That's why they don't even mention that anymore. They don't even talk about unity anymore. They gave up on that in the first 6 months of 2021. It was never about unity. It's been constant. It's been constantly about division and obedience, subservience. They just don't want to tell you that in those words because it's like turning on the light. You suddenly get to see what's going on. You heard all the sounds, but you didn't know what it meant. You turned on the light and you suddenly see that, yeah, they're stealing you blind. So I think that says a lot about that. And I think you're going to see this repeated in poll after poll. I think you're going to see when it comes to Maine, people are going to, Colorado, Maine, yes, we will see the Supreme Court is going to rule on this before those primaries come up. Yes, the Supreme Court is absolutely going to say that if you are not convicted of the crime of insurrection, you are not an insurrectionist. That's a fact. It's just that simple. And anyone can feel however they want to feel. You are factually not an insurrectionist unless you have been convicted of insurrection. That is going to be laid down clear. And because a judge made a ruling based on a non-fact, that is going to throw out that entire ruling. Colorado is going to be wrong because at the core, the root of what they said is invalid. Therefore, everything else from it is invalid. You cannot punish Trump for a crime he has never been convicted of. You cannot do that. Therefore, they will have that thrown out. Colorado and Maine will both have to reverse their positions and put Trump back onto the ballot. And you will see people vote for Trump, and you will see people write in Trump's name, even as that whole process is going. It's going to be, and it has been, a positive, because as a protest, people will vote Donald Trump, just to say the government doesn't have the right to nullify your vote. The government doesn't have the right to pick and choose for you. And God help us, not only shouldn't the government pick for us, but look at what they do when they do pick things for us. They fail, they fail, they fail. Every time. Government doesn't know how to do anything correctly except taxes, and, well, that's about it. So I think that's what you're going to see. You're going to see a change. You're going to see that Colorado and Maine will be overturned. I don't think that's shocking to anyone. This has always been a political gaffe, to be honest. But this is a gimmick. It's always meant to be a gimmick. It's a way to try and fundraise. Again, it's a way to try and discourage people. And for low information voters who only go by the headlines, the same people who think that Russia collusion is real, even though it's been debunked 1,000 different ways with $35 million of your tax money, totally debunked. The people who think that the Ukraine conversation between Trump, they think that's real. again, also debunked. The people who think that Trump has been convicted of insurrection, these are all low information voters that have no clue what's going on. Yeah, you might convince them, but none of them were voting anyway. Not only do I think none of them were going to vote for Trump, I don't think any of them were going to vote anyway. These are the people who are convinced that their vote doesn't matter. So they're meaningless. So I don't think that's really going to change anything. I think we're going to continue to see that Trump is looking at about 45. At this moment, you're looking at Trump getting about 45, 47% of the vote. If it were a national election right this second, just Joe Biden and Donald Trump, Trump will win with 47, maybe somewhere between, 52%, probably. But if you add in RFK, then you see Trump with about 45%. And you'll see Biden much lower. And RFK is going to have roughly about 17% of the vote, somewhere in that range. I think he gets above 15%. I don't think he gets the 22% that he's been polling at, because I think when it comes to the day, when it comes time to make your vote, I think people are going to say, I don't trust third party. They need that assurance that their vote is going to have some kind of impact. And I think you will see people defect from RFK to either Joe Biden or to Donald Trump, mostly to Donald Trump, because Joe Biden is ineffective and he's hurting America. Let's see. Grace says they also try to get people to believe that they cannot vote for Trump in Nevada. Yeah, they're trying that in a few states. But he is doing the caucus there instead of the regular vote, so he's not on the ballot. Well, they're going to try, and they were trying to do this in California, in New York. Actually, Gavin Newsom, believe it or not, Gavin Newsom actually stood up for Trump and said, no, you can't take him off the ballot. That was a dumb idea. It's a bad gimmick, and it will backfire. This is literally the week of the decision by Colorado. Gavin Newsom came out and said, this is a bad idea. He was absolutely against it. He does not want to see that in California, that they should not remove him because it starts a game of tit for tat, and it doesn't help anyone, and it's not changing anyone's vote. So I find that interesting that Gavin Newsom was there. But we have heard in California, in New York, Illinois, Nevada, we've heard a few, and notice these are all bluer than blue states where they have said this. Michigan had the choice to try and jump onto the train with Maine and Colorado, and they said, no, there is no factual basis for this. This doesn't make any sense. And they said, no, they rejected the idea of taking Trump off the ballot because he committed no crime. So even in the bluest of blue states, while they'll talk about it, they know this gimmick has a limited shelf life, and it is only for low information voters. This is the gimmick to try and get low information voters to not vote at all. To just, see, your vote won't count because you want to pick Donald Trump. He won't be on the ballot and you can't write it in. Just don't show up. Just don't show up. That's what this is all about. Don't show up. That is all this is about. And it's kind of sad because it's really, really shallow. It's really obvious what they're going for. And I think it's failing. I think it's failing in droves. It shows how desperate Democrats are and how low they will sink to try and win. Just don't show up. Just don't show up. Please, please, please don't show up and vote Orange Man bad. We can't give you a reason to vote for Joe Biden, but please don't vote for Orange Man bad. That's the only thing they seem to be able to say. It's incredible. And I wanted to bring up something else. Got about half an hour left. And by the way, I didn't show this earlier, but when I say that Trump is stomping all over, I mean, this is ABC News. Came out today, ABC News. And so I just want you to see this here. And this article is, Trump tops his opponents while Biden hits a new low in approval ahead of Iowa caucuses. So when I'm saying that Joe Biden is doing miserable, that Democrats have no concern, they do not want to show up, they do not want him, this is coming from ABC News. It's not me. Again, the links are in the description. You don't have to believe me. This is ABC News. They're left-leaning. No one's ever conserved. No one's ever called ABC News conservative or right-leaning. It's just not. That's a joke. And they're even highlighting, although they buried it pretty deep, by the way. They definitely buried this so that you wouldn't notice. But it's in there that they only have a couple of paragraphs really highlighting it this way. But even Democrats have no hope. They have no belief in this. It's very straightforward. So trying this whole thing about whether you're on the ballot, off the ballot, it's a gimmick. It's for low information voters. And most importantly, it's at the end of the day, it's about government has more power than the people. And that's why it's dangerous. I guarantee you if they try and get this through, the next election, they'll do the same thing. Oh, you don't qualify. We don't consider you a qualified candidate. Therefore, we're not going to count you. They'll do it to AOC. Oh, AOC, hey, great, but we don't consider you a candidate. Don't know why. They'll come up with a reason. Doesn't matter what it is. They'll just make up a reason. You were arrested on the steps. You were fake arrested on the steps of the Supreme Court because you were protesting a decision on Roe v. Wade. That means you're an insurrectionist, so AOC can't run for president. It's the same logic. It's the same kind of logic. Actually, you have even more evidence with AOC of getting arrested, of being on the Supreme Court steps, of trying to promote insurrection, to tell people not to follow the law as per the Supreme Court, that there should be people who would not follow the law. She actually advocated for that. There's actually quotes of her saying that. So you could make a better case to say, because we all know AOC is looking to run for either Senate to replace Kirsten Gillibrand in New York, or to try and make a run in 2028 for the presidency. But you could, under this same logic and ideology, you could say, oh, she's denied. Why? Well, she got arrested because she was promoting insurrection. She said, don't follow the Supreme Court because of Roe v. Wade, that you should revolt against the government, and she got arrested for it. Well, there's more proof of her being an insurrectionist and supporting insurrection than Trump. Therefore, you know what? AOC can't run for Senate. She can't run for anything. You don't let her run for Senate. She can't run for Congress. She can't run for president. She's out of politics because you won't accept her ballot. Do that and watch the heads spin on the left. Watch them come out and go, you can't say that. Oh, no. You can't convict her on that. That's not same feeling. It says credible. It's more credible than what they're doing to Trump right now. And ask anyone who says, oh, well, Trump should be off the ballot. Fantastic. So you don't think that AOC should be on any ballot either, right? What? What do you mean she shouldn't be on any ballot? Well, exactly the scenario I just put forward, which is insurrection. No, but you don't understand. That's not an insurrection. Yes, it is. By definition, that was insurrectionist. Her and Chuck Schumer. Yeah, that was insurrectionist. By definition. Well, no, but this is different. You don't get it because Orange Man Bat, yeah, I don't care about the color of his skin. Let's get into it. Would you support that? They'll say no to Chuck Schumer. They'll say no to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez being treated the same way, which tells you right up front, if using the same rule set, their rules don't get equally applied, then it's not about the rule set. It's about power. It's about taking away your power. I think that's one of the best ways I can explain that. I really do. I hope people will agree with me on that. I don't know. We'll see. I also wanted to cover... Earlier in the week, I addressed that there was a health safety issue in the Bronx, New York, the 3400 block of Boston Road in the Bronx, the North Bronx. There was a water main emergency. Several buildings nearly collapsed because of high pressure in the water main in the Bronx, which the fire department came at 11:30 at night on Tuesday, and they resolved that. And I reached out to every elected official in New York. I reached out to the New York City Keith Riley, New York City council member, the New York City council member. I reached out to Richie Torres, the member of Congress. I reached out to the mayor. I reached out to Assembly, to the state Senate, asking them about public health, about public safety. To this day, that was on Tuesday, 5 days later, not one of them has responded. Not one member of New York's elected government cares about the people in the Bronx. They do not care about public health. They don't care about water quality, about water safety. They don't care about the two elementary schools in the region that would have been affected by the water if it was contaminated. And by the way, I do know that 2 members of the EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, on Saturday at noon were on Seymour, that same block, the 3400 block of Boston Road, and they were tapping into the sewer lines to test the water. I know because I saw them doing it. I watched them as they did it. So they can't say they weren't there. The EPA was there this Saturday. That was yesterday. That would be the 13th at about noon. So the EPA was testing the water. But the public officials have zero to say about this. I don't know why. What did the EPA test for? That's the question. What was the EPA testing for? Why won't they tell the public? Is there a health emergency or concern that exists in the Bronx, and why are they hiding when 10,000 people might be affected by this, including children? I don't know. Let me see. And all right, last thing, and then I'm going to go for the night. So bear with me. I also find it interesting that the very same left-leaning individuals do not want to discuss, do not want you to discuss, that they are willing, these very same progressives are more than willing to throw you under a bus. They don't care. They will take your kids, and they will, in the middle of the winter, they will take your kids and shunt them back to remote learning, which we know is not effective, that we have seen, and we have proof that remote learning hurts kids' education. We know this for a fact. It has been a detriment to kids to be remote learning. We know that for a fact. We have the data on this. And what was their answer? Kick the kids out of the school so that illegal aliens can go and sleep in their schools. The illegal aliens are more important than your kids, more important than your kids' education. They will throw your kids under a bus to take care of illegal aliens, individuals who have committed crimes in America. It's crazy, folks. It's crazy. I know, I'm finishing up. It's just crazy, folks. And it's just that obvious. It is that real. We have the evidence. There's video of this. Again, credible news agencies have video watching this happen. New York City is admitting that they did this, that they are more than willing to crush your kid's education potential, to destroy, potentially. When you destroy someone's education potential, you are destroying their life in the future, especially if you listen to the left. You're destroying their lives forever. And they are willing to do that so that illegal aliens that aren't supposed to be in our nation, that we have no obligation to, that we are spending your tax money on, that is already hurting our schools, they're going to throw your kids even further under the bus. It's insane. Somebody needs to speak about it. I am. You should be paying attention to it. That was news they didn't care about. All right. So we came back and we did another 2 hours on top of the 2.5 hours we did earlier. It's 4.5 hours for the day. It's a long day. We covered a lot. I think I covered a lot of stuff about politics. I hope that everyone who's able to come back or stayed on and rumble throughout the entire dead section there, didn't know that was happening. Please like, share, subscribe. Help us with the algorithm. Look, I'm only one guy. That's it. I'm a one-man team. I'm trying to do the work that 10,000 people do at the New York Times, that 10,000 people are doing on your local news agencies that are owned by mega corporations. I'm one guy doing all of that. Help me out. Like, share, subscribe. If you want, become a member of our Patreon. It's $1.50 a month. We do about 30 hours of content a week with multiple live streams as well as videos throughout the week and many shorts. If you want to do just one-time payment because you thought this was kind of interesting, fantastic. Go to PayPal. You can make a donation there, whatever amount you want. My Patreon, $1.50 a month. You can't get streaming content for cheaper than that other than free. And you know what? You can get it for free. Just like, share, or subscribe. That's all I can ask for. Folks, I want to thank you. Thank you, Graham. I do try and make it a good stream as much as I can. I thank everyone for coming back and joining me here. I hope you're going to have a great day. Stay warm. It's winter. It's going to snow. Oh, I know. So just stay warm, stay safe, and don't freak out because the climatologists don't know what they're talking about. Folks, I will talk to you again very, very soon.